So hello and welcome to the channel, welcome to another Assetto Corsa Competizione video. We're here at Misano, the location for last night's XCL race, where I managed to pick up third place, but I'll feature that video in another video, I guess. But today's video is very much a learning curve for both you and me, hopefully, and something that I was pretty disappointed with in last night's outing was my own personal performance on the circuit. Despite picking up a podium position, I was a long way off the pace, and no one likes to be a long way off the pace. The Honda certainly does match my driving style, and it's definitely capable of a better lap, but I'm just wondering if, like myself, you're making these two very big mistakes when it comes to getting the most from the car. A lot of it will come down to driver skill, a lot of it will come down to practice, but a lot of it will come down to actually making those changes on the car itself. So what am I talking about? Well, let's have a little look at last night's replay and some of the footage. So we'll just pause it there and we'll come to the inboard camera and just press play. I'll just bring up the hood so that we can see on the right hand side my inputs. So you can see also down in the right hand corner that I'm running traction control 8, and you can also see that the brake bias is 53. You can see as I come off some of the corners, I'll press to traction control 4, but you'll also see that I am negating to use TC1. So let's just see how I attack the lap, and predominantly my braking zone, so braking at the grass, turning in nice and hard, taking some of the corner out, plenty of throttle, but we've got a huge amount of understeer through there, and I'm now swapping to traction control 4 on the exit and then back to 8. Braking just between those two 100 yard boards and the 50 board, but very much aiming for the 100 yard board for my braking zone. Quite a shallow line into the hairpin there, and you can see traction control 4 enabled just to get the acceleration off the corner. Back to TC8. So as we come into here, braking sort of around the middle of the corner, getting the nose turned in, and then braking at the line on the outside of the circuit. TC4 to get the acceleration. Loads of understeer as we come through here, almost running wide. Braking at the 50 board, or kind of just before it, and accelerating off TC8. So let's just bear in mind what we're kind of looking at is traction control. I'm only using one of the settings, and the brake balance is 53. So if we look at the leader, the car 221, which Cozy Learner, I was forgetting his name there. So straight away, looking at the delta on the right hand side, we can see that he's got his brake balance all the way down at 49%. Now I really struggle with rear wheel bias when it comes to braking. I always feel like it rotates the car too much, and I feel very unsettled coming into a lot of corners. I just feel like the car rotates too much under braking for myself. We can also see that he's got traction control 3 on TC and traction control 3 on TC2. So two very important things. Let's have a look at his lap. So you can see he's coming up against a bit of traffic. So braking at the 100 yard board, He's almost braking at the 50-yard board. Such is the braking performance when you start to move the brake balance more towards or even past central. A very wide line into the apex of the hairpin, so carrying much more speed round the outside of the corner. I definitely recommend to do this when you've been in races with other drivers that are setting phenomenal lap times. So braking so much later. A nice wide line into this corner. So we're going to aim to brake at the board on the 100 yards, all the way to the 50-yard board before he's looking at braking. I'm just going to rewind that because I almost don't believe you can brake that late. So we can see at the 100-yard board he's still not braking. Still not braking. Still not braking. It's only as he reaches the 50-yard board that he's actually applying any brake pedal. Absolutely amazes me. Not sure whether his exit's the best he could get. Turn 1 in 3rd gear. Now, don't get me wrong, I always think that the replay footage it always looks like the car is so stable, but I'm sure he's fighting the wheel here to keep this car under control. But still, he's in 3rd gear going through the first corner. The number 6 car very much holding him up. I guess they're all having their own little battles here. But you can see just how easy it is. You're just pottering round here. It's just nice and slowly for him. Get the switch back and accelerating off the corner. Give the guy a little bit more room. And again, we're looking to brake at this 100-yard board, but he carries it so much past. Almost at the 50-yard board before he's braking. A little bit steady on the acceleration, but he's not using very much traction control. You can see he's just fighting at getting the car stable again. So all these things you can pick up just from the replay. Just subtle things as well, I think. Braking later into the corners because of the brake balance. Taking a wider line here and there. So yeah, just think about a few things to think about, and we'll just have a quick look over the differences between the two setups. So the setup that I was using last night was this one. So we'll just look at each page in its own merit. So you can see there we're running 3-toe. The camber angle's not going to change, but the toe angle, let's just load the next one. You can see I've added 2 more rear toe to get the rear to rotate a little bit more. Traction control, I've come to 5 and 5. Let's look at the other one. Traction control is at 7 and I'm not using TC2. So we come to the mechanical. Changes in the mechanical. I've increased the stiffness of the car because I just gradually started to increase it, doing lap after lap, and it's so much more stable with a stiffer suspension around Mazzano. Brake balance, this has come from 53 down to 49. Not sure if I've taken the anti-roll bar down a touch. Let's just have a quick look. No, the anti-roll bar's stayed the same, but we're trying to create less understeer and a little bit more oversteer. Dampers, I haven't touched the dampers. 11 on the rear wing, 12 on the rear wing, and I've lifted the ride height. So I'm gonna load up the first one, and I'm just gonna do a lap. So let's bang a lap in. And it doesn't feel too bad, it feels pretty good, to be honest. See me very deep. Understeering. It's almost like I've got to change how I'm driving this car to suit the problems with the car. Sure, we can do a better lap than that with it. Nearly 2 tenths up already. Just had to lift out of it there, bouncing on the rev limiter. Already looking like a much better lap. A little bit out of control there. Lost loads of time. And a little bit wayward. So let's return to the garage. Just have a look over this last lap. 23.4 set to 1, 23.5, 37.5 and 33.6. So even though we had that little running wide at the end, a 34.6, pretty comfortable. Let's go back into the garage. Back into the garage. And we'll choose a better setup. No messing around with changing traction controls. We're just going to stick with 5 and 5. Much more rearward bias. And obviously you can see a little bit more livelier on the accelerator. So let's go for a lap. Bit shallow there on the entry. Let's go for another lap. Didn't mean to do that, just habit. I think that speaks for itself. We're into the 133s finally. It's such a great feeling to finally be there. In fact, I'm just going to come back and we'll just have a quick look just at the differences between the lap deltas. So you can see up here, this was our 34.6 lap, just running a tiny bit wide. Don't get me wrong, we can do a 34.6 with this setup, but to knock half a second off, and I don't particularly think I'd totally nailed the lap. I mean, that's like 5/10 in the final sector alone. Very similar first sectors, but it's just so much better, so much. Obviously you're doing a little bit more with the wheel. You're gonna have to get used to more rearward braking, but what a difference that has made to my lap times at Misano. And I think, let's return to the garage. I think for a long time I've thought that TC, getting rid of all this TC2 and increasing this was better, but I think it's something that's missing. Maybe it's not always going to be the case, but certainly worth exploring. And I certainly think the brake balance thing is something that I need to learn to adapt to as a driver. Obviously we're always trying to better how good we are. And I think even as a good driver, I think I would class as a good driver, I'm always trying to better myself, and if I need to learn to adapt to a more rearward bias, I think in the long run it increases the performance on the car. So I need to change either my driving style or the way I set the car up in order to get the most from the car. And by adding or reducing the brake balance or moving the brake balance more rearward, it just increases braking performance. Something that we can always do as well to make the car more stable in braking areas is to increase the preload. The more you start to reduce the preload on corner entry, the car will want to rotate more. By locking the rear, we're almost locking the rear wheels more under braking off throttle situations when we increase the preload. The more we increase the preload, the more you'll get rotation on corner exit. It'll want to oversteer more on corner exit. The more you reduce it, the less it's going to want to oversteer on corner exit. So if the braking's not a problem for you, but the traction control is, lowering the preload will reduce the rotation at the rear wheels on corner exit. It won't lock them as quickly, so it'll allow one wheel to travel more, and it's the wheel that's locking that creates the slippage that causes the oversteer. So the more you increase that, the more oversteer you're going to get. The sooner it'll lock the wheels, the sooner it'll start to light up the wheel that's not got as much grip or that's on the outside of the corner. So under corner entry, increase the preload to make the car more stable. If the car doesn't rotate as much on corner entry, you could start to reduce the preload. If you're struggling with oversteer on corner exit, decrease the preload. And if it's not a problem, keep increasing it till it is a problem, because it'll help you on the corner entry and on the exit with having more preload. That's my opinion anyway. But just so you've got the setup, I'll just quickly run through every page. And you've seen me turn a few laps. So I think there we have it really. That's going to be the video for today. I will get round to delivering the footage from last night's race, which was, like I said, there's so much to learn even for myself. From every single race that I take part in, I do try to take video footage, and as you can see, I study where I'm going wrong with my setup, or where I'm driving differently to someone else that's setting faster lap times. And I certainly recommend to other drivers that are a little bit further towards the back of the grid, study other drivers, see what they're doing in your races. You can jump on board, see what setup, things like the brake pedal, the brake balance, things like that they're using. Obviously the rest of the setup's going to play a huge part. But yeah, I hope you found that useful. I hope it might give you something to think about with your own setups. Till next time, ciao for now.